The city lights glittered beneath me as I parked on the rooftop garage of my new apartment complex. For the first time in years, I had everything I worked for within my own reach. My company's valuation had skyrocketed, my team was thriving, and the buzz online made my late nights feel worth it. Yet something in me bristled when I saw the text from my father. Leonard, family dinner at 7 p.m. Important discussion. I'd love to hear from you. Drop your name and the city you're watching from in the comments. Your story matters more than you know. Bell, and if you want more real stories about family betrayal, resilience, and reclaiming your life, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. I stared at it longer than I should have, the glow of my phone reflecting off the glass like a warning sign. This wasn't about celebration or reconciling the years of neglect. It never was. Not with my parents. Not with Adrian, my older brother. Not with Simon and Theo, who'd grown up with entitlement practically etched into their DNA. I grabbed my jacket, ignoring the keys to my sleek, new SUV. Tonight, I'd drive the old sedan, the one that had seen me through college, through sleepless nights, through every moment they didn't notice I existed. Predictability made people sloppy, and I intended to see exactly what script they'd try to perform tonight. As I drove across the city, memories rose like ghosts. I remembered sleeping in my car after my first startup pitch failed. I remembered the tiny apartments, the unpaid bills, the times I begged for help and was told struggle built character. I remembered every missed graduation, every half-hearted, proud moment that wasn't really for me. Tonight, those memories fueled me. They didn't weaken me. The rooftop penthouse they reserved for the dinner looked pristine, as always with a glass facade reflecting the skyline. I stepped inside, and the smell of polished marble and overpriced candles made me flinch. My family's laughter floated from the dining room, perfectly timed, rehearsed, and hollow. Amelia, Leonard's voice boomed as he spotted me, arms opening wide. A gesture meant to disarm, to show warmth, but I wasn't buying it. Margot followed, kisses on my cheeks, a hand lingering just enough to measure my reaction. You look tired. Are you eating well? She sounded concerned, but it felt rehearsed, like a scene from a play I'd seen too many times. Adrian smirked, swirling his wine glass like he was evaluating a new business acquisition. Simon glanced at his phone, barely acknowledging me. Theo stayed quiet in the corner, watching, waiting. I sat, one chair removed from the rest. That distance felt necessary. I listened as they opened with polite, surface-level questions about my company, my schedule, and my latest media mentions. The conversation felt like a wall I had to climb slowly, hand over hand, careful not to trigger any alarms. Then Adrian leaned forward, eyes sharp. So, your company made headlines today, he said, admiration mixed with calculation, as always. Leonard nodded. Quite the attention grabber. Exciting, isn't it? Simon added, his voice smooth, almost condescending. And just like that, the air shifted. I felt it immediately, a tightening in my chest, honed over years of knowing when the room changed from polite to predatory. Margot glanced at Leonard. Adrian smirked knowingly. Simon cleared his throat. Theo's quietness became deliberate observation. Leonard's tone dropped, businesslike. We actually wanted to discuss something important with you tonight. Amelia, the trap revealed itself. I didn't flinch. I'd learned long ago that fear was a luxury my family relied on to manipulate me. They outlined their plan. They needed my access to credit, my company's liquidity, my personal financial leverage to fund a struggling property development and investment venture. They painted it as a family opportunity, a chance to build something lasting, while simultaneously attempting to gaslight me into feeling responsible for the empire they had already mismanaged. I listened quietly, measuring. My mind cataloged every flaw. The failing flagship property they claimed was future-proof, the rising debts, the contractor complaints, the unpaid maintenance. Every word they spoke gave me clarity, not confusion. I leaned back, deliberate, controlled. "You skipped all the moments that mattered in my life," I said softly. The words landed heavier than any shout. "And now you're here, asking for access. Not for my sake. Not for love. For your convenience." Silence pressed down on us like a tangible weight. I met Leonard's eyes, steady and unyielding. Margot's hand twitched on the table. Adrian's smirk faltered. Simon froze mid-gesture. Theo blinked rapidly. "You think I'm being dramatic," I continued, "but I've been watching for decades. I've seen the scripts, the rehearsals, the performances designed to guilt me into compliance. Not this time." The room stilled, the air itself seeming to hold its breath. Their mouths opened, closed, words failing them. I reached into my bag and placed a plain folder on the table. Heavy, unmarked, calculated. "This," I said, letting the words roll slowly, "is the truth." Before they could respond, the door opened. Harper stepped in. Calm, precise, unmissable. Every movement carried intent. She laid a stack of documents on the table. "Everything has been finalized," she said. "The transfers are complete." The room shifted instantly. Papers, numbers, and legal confirmations stared back at them. Their empire wasn't just shaky, it was gone. I had orchestrated the exposure and transfer myself, leaving them to confront the reality of their mismanagement and overreach. Leonard stared, mouth agape. "Impossible," he whispered. I met his gaze calmly. "Not impossible, just overdue." Harper's presence, the documents, the clarity, it was all the leverage I needed. I didn't need to raise my voice or beg for recognition. The truth spoke for itself. I slid my chair back, smoothing my jacket. "I'm not here to save your empire," I said quietly. "I'm here to end my part in it." And for the first time in years, the air around me felt like freedom. The room was quiet, heavy with the weight of disbelief. Leonard's fingers trembled as they hovered over the documents. Margot's eyes darted between the papers and my face. Her lips pressed tightly together. Adrian's smirk had vanished, replaced by something more raw, a flicker of panic. Simon sat frozen, glancing at Theo, whose expression was unreadable, almost detached. Harper stayed beside me, calm, precise. Her presence was a silent assertion. This wasn't negotiable. Everything had been finalized. My family's empires, the illusion they'd been cultivating for years, had been dismantled in a few deliberate moves. I leaned forward, hands on the table. "Let me explain this clearly, so there's no room for misunderstanding." They looked at me, the room tense enough to make the air vibrate. "All your properties, the debts, the outstanding payments, the so-called future projects, everything has been transferred to a private investment entity," I said. "Guess who controls it?" I paused, letting my words hang. "Me." Leonard's chair scraped against the marble floor as he stood abruptly. "You think you can humiliate me like this? After all we've done for you?" I met his gaze without flinching. "You didn't do anything for me. You used my name, my resources, my credit to prop up a sinking empire. And now you're facing the consequences of your choices." Margot gasped, clutching her napkin. Adrian shook his head violently. Simon muttered under his breath. Theo finally spoke, voice low. "Amelia, what did you do?" I let Harper answer that for me. "Everything is finalized. All legal and financial transfers have been executed. Their debts, liabilities, and obligations are no longer on her shoulders. The documents are legally binding." Silence followed. It wasn't the polite hush of a room waiting for conversation. It was the heavy, stunned silence of people realizing they'd lost control. "You You can't do this. Leonard said, voice breaking slightly. We're your family. I let out a small, calm laugh. Family doesn't give you carte blanche to exploit someone. Family doesn't show up only when there's gain to be made. You've been using me for years, and tonight it ends. Adrian tried to interject, voice sharp. You've blindsided us. You should have discussed this first. I leaned back in my chair, calm, deliberate. Discussed what? Your failing projects, the years of neglect, the silent exploitation? No, Adrian, I don't negotiate with people who see me as a resource. Margot's hand trembled as she reached for the papers. Amelia, please, we can fix this. We can. No, I said softly but firmly, you can't. You've been given every chance, every warning, and every choice you made was for yourselves, never for me. The transfers aren't just paperwork. They're a reset. For me. For you, it's exposure. Simon finally set his phone down, eyes wide. Exposure? Yes. You've mismanaged, you've overextended, and you've relied on my credit, my investments, and my reputation to cover your mistakes. Tonight, that stops. All your obligations are transferred, legally, professionally, and there's nothing you can do to reverse it. Theo shifted in his seat. You can do that. I met his gaze. Yes, because I learned how to navigate the spaces you never taught me to occupy. You thought you were protecting the family. You were exposing yourselves. Leonard slammed his fist on the table. I am your father. You will respect this family. I shook his head slowly. Respect isn't earned by title. Respect is earned by action. You have none left for me. And tonight, I'm claiming what is rightfully mine, my autonomy, my boundaries, and my future. Harper slid a separate envelope toward me. Your buyout proposal is included, she said. It's generous enough to allow them to restart if they choose, but not enough to let them manipulate you again. I looked at the sum, a clean, rounded amount far more than the equity was worth, far more than they deserved. Leonard's jaw dropped. Margot's hand froze midair. Adrian's fingers tightened on the edge of the table. Simon's eyes widened. Theo's face remained unreadable. This is not pity, I said, voice even. It's severance. It's closure. It's the last piece of this illusion you've held over me. Leonard's voice broke. You are no daughter of mine. For the first time in my life, those words felt like liberation. You're right, I said, smoothing my jacket. I'm not the daughter you wanted. I'm the daughter you made. Adrian demanded explanations. Simon muttered about legal recourse, and Theo swore under his breath. Margot said nothing, her eyes brimming with a mix of guilt and disbelief. But Leonard just stared at the documents, at the numbers that confirmed what I had orchestrated. His empire was gone, not in ruin, but under someone else's control, mine. The chaos in the room swirled around me, voices overlapping, arguments rising and falling, accusations flung like daggers. Yet I remained calm. I didn't need to argue, to defend, or to justify. The facts were absolute, and the outcome inevitable. Harper opened the door for me, and I stood, straightening my jacket. Before leaving, I looked at each of them one last time. Not with anger, not with triumph, with certainty. I didn't come here to save your empire. I said quietly, I came to end my part in it. The night air hit me like a reset. Cold, steady, honest. Behind me, the muffled chaos continued. Harper walked beside me toward the car, her heels clicking a steady rhythm against the pavement. You sure you're okay? She asked. Solid. I nodded. For the first time in years, that answer wasn't a performance. I'm more than okay. I unlocked my SUV and slipped inside, breathing in the quiet. No missed calls. No demands. No guilt. The numbers, the documents, the transfers, they were all final. I started the engine, and the city stretched before me, a tapestry of lights and possibilities. Not one built around rescuing people who had never intended to see me succeed. For the first time, the future didn't feel intimidating. It looked open, and I was free to walk into it without asking permission. The ride home was quiet, almost eerily so. The city lights blurred past, and for the first time in years, I felt no tension coiling in my chest, no rehearsed smiles, no careful wording to keep peace. Just me, the hum of the engine, and the steady rhythm of my own heartbeat. Harper drove behind me in her car, but we didn't speak. There was nothing that needed to be said. The work had been done. The transfers, the exposure, the buyout, everything that had been withheld from me, twisted around me, or stolen from me was now mine to hold or release. And I chose freedom. I pulled into my driveway, a modest house I had bought near the river months ago. Its simplicity was deliberate, a home where I could finally exist without constant evaluation, without the weight of expectation pressing against my ribs. I stepped out, letting the cool night air wash over me. For the first time, the silence wasn't lonely. It was healing. Inside, I poured a glass of water and sank into my couch, letting exhaustion ripple through me. Years of restraint, of shrinking, of bending to their will fell away in layers. The truth about my family's empire, their manipulations, their reliance on me as a financial crutch, it didn't leave bitterness behind. It left clarity. I thought about Leonard, Margot, Adrian, Simon, Theo. Each of them had depended on me being predictable, invisible, compliant. And when I wasn't, they panicked. They tried to gaslight, to guilt, to charm. But I had outmaneuvered them without raising my voice, without yelling, without needing to fight. Precision, preparation, and calm had been my weapons, and they were enough. Days passed. Emails arrived from banks, legal confirmations, statements, all affirming that the transfers were complete and irrevocable. My family's empire, their so-called legacy, was no longer tethered to my name or resources. My phone buzzed once, a blocked number, the remnants of someone who had never shown up when it mattered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I had already reclaimed myself. It took longer to process the emotional impact than the financial victory. I found myself walking along the riverbank at dawn, watching the sun stretch across the water, reflecting gold and pink across the surface. For years, I had measured love, success, and security by their approval, by their attention, by their presence or absence. And for years, that standard had left me small, uncertain, and constantly calculating my worth. Now, I realized something simple and profound. Worth doesn't come from being noticed by people who only see you when it serves them. Worth comes from seeing yourself, standing for yourself, and refusing to let others rewrite your story. Harper joined me for a morning coffee, her presence calm and grounding. "You've done more than most could," she said. "You didn't just protect yourself. You exposed them. Legally, financially, morally. And you did it without losing yourself in the process." I smiled, feeling a release I hadn't known I needed. I realized something. I said, family isn't a guarantee. Blood isn't a currency of love or protection. It's just people. And sometimes the people you expect to show up don't. And that's not your failure. It's their choice. Over the following weeks, life settled into a rhythm I'd never thought possible. My company continued to thrive. My decisions were my own. I no longer measured every choice against what my family would approve or manipulate. There were no texts demanding my attention, no dinners loaded with obligation, no silent evaluations waiting to trap me into guilt. I checked the news one morning. My company had been featured again, this time highlighting a charitable initiative I had launched quietly away from family interference. I smiled at the irony. They had wanted to control how I spent, invested, and leveraged every resource. Now, I controlled every outcome, including my own narrative. Amelia, the daughter they underestimated, the one they tried to mold, the one they used, had become fully visible to herself first. And that visibility didn't need anyone's validation. It didn't hinge on applause, approval, or attention. I thought about the moral of this story, the one I'd never read in a book or heard in a speech. It wasn't about revenge in the cinematic sense. It wasn't about proving superiority. It was simpler, sharper, and more personal. Protect yourself fiercely, invest in your own future, and never allow the people who ignore you when it matters to dictate your worth. Survival is not selfish. It's the first act of claiming your life. Weeks later, Harper and I revisited the rooftop of my apartment. The city stretched endlessly before us. Lights, possibilities, the hum of life moving forward. I took a deep breath, letting it fill me completely. The night felt open, not threatening, free, not controlled. And I realized that I no longer carried the weight of expectation, fear, or obligation. I reached for my phone, scrolling past old messages and blocked numbers. There was one message from a new investor, excited to collaborate. Another from a childhood friend I hadn't seen in years, congratulating me. Each ping, each notification reminded me that life moved forward, and I moved with it. I let the cityscape settle into my vision and whispered to myself, I am not defined by those who never showed up. I am defined by how I rise, how I act, and how I choose myself. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel obligated to survive in the shadow of others. I felt grounded, present, and finally free. Because sometimes survival isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's deliberate. It's the courage to say no when everyone else expects yes, to leave when everyone else expects obedience, and to choose your life when everyone else would have taken it from you. And so, standing on that rooftop, the city alive beneath me, I knew that freedom was mine, not because I was stronger than them, not because I wanted revenge, but because I refused to let anyone else define the boundaries of my life ever again. If you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or used by the people you thought would always support you, know this: choosing yourself is not betrayal. It is clarity. It is survival. It is life claimed on your terms. And nothing, no debt, no expectation, no bloodline can take that away.